Welcome to Conspiracist. Today we're diving into the hypothesis that governments intentionally conceal evidence of government black budget projects.
Yes, it's a complex area. We'll be exploring the claims, the reasoning behind them.
And we'll maintain a strictly professional and objective tone as we examine the information before us.
Okay, so let's unpack this concept of black budgets first. What are we actually talking about?
Good point. Laying the groundwork.
At its core, we're discussing secret military and intelligence expenditures. Money spent outside the normal public budget process.
And it's worth noting, right, that this isn't exactly a brand new phenomenon.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The idea of government-funded projects operating, let's say, outside of complete public visibility, well, it has a history.
It's especially in defense.
Particularly within the defense sector, yes. Certain initiatives have historically involved financial arrangements that weren't openly disclosed.
That makes me think of a really significant historical precedent, the Manhattan Project.
The classic example started back in 1939.
A hugely secretive research program. And it operated with what was effectively a black budget, didn't it?
It absolutely did. The rationale, based on the available information, was extreme secrecy, even from many within Congress initially.
Really? Why keep Congress in the dark?
Primarily driven by concerns about potential misunderstandings, maybe a lack of belief in the project's feasibility, and crucially, the risk of sensitive information reaching enemy hands, specifically Germany at the time.
That makes sense in a wartime context.
And what's fascinating, if you look at this historical case, is how the legal framework sort of evolved afterwards to accommodate this.
How so?
Well, the post-World War II period saw some key legislation. You had the 1947 National Security Act and then the 1949 CIA Act.
Okay.
And these really laid the groundwork for what we now understand as classified reporting and, importantly, classified appropriations.
So secret funding got a legal basis, in a way.
Essentially, yes. These acts provided a legal structure for Congress to acknowledge and approve, at least in principle, the existence of secret spending, even if the actual details remained hidden. It was congressional approval for the concept.
Okay, so if we accept that black budgets have this historical and legal basis, what are the main reasons given for keeping them secret? Why do it?
Well, our analysis of the material points to national security as probably the paramount concern.
Especially during tense times.
Exactly. Periods like wartime or the Cold War. Hiding something like the atomic bomb project was obviously seen as absolutely crucial for national survival.
Makes sense. What else?
Another key justification centers on protecting sensitive technologies and capabilities. Think about stealth technology, for instance.
Right, the B-2 bomber or the F-117.
Precisely. Back in 1987, Secretary Weinberger talked about stealth aircraft. He basically said, look, the specifics are classified, but there's enough public evidence for you to infer their potential.
So, keeping the edge. Preventing adversaries from knowing exactly what you can do.
That's the core idea. You don't want rivals getting insights into your most advanced capabilities.
The information also suggests another angle, maybe avoiding public debate.
Yes, that's mentioned. Using black budgets to bypass potential public opposition or even political debate, especially for projects that might be seen as unconventional or just really, really expensive.
Like the Manhattan Project again, that concern you mentioned about appropriations committees.
Exactly. There was a real worry back then that the committees responsible for funding might not see the value or might balk at the immense gamble involved in trying to build an atomic bomb. Secrecy avoided that hurdle.
That leads to another point sometimes raised: efficiency.
Right. There's an argument, though it's definitely debated, that black budgets might streamline the procurement process.
How would that work?
By reducing the layers of oversight. Fewer committees, less public scrutiny. The idea is that this could potentially lead to faster development, quicker deployment, maybe even cost benefits, although that's highly questionable in practice.
Bypassing bureaucracy, essentially.
That's the claim. Whether it actually works out that way is another matter entirely.
And then there's the whole intelligence angle. Secrecy seems inherent there.
It does. When you look at intelligence activities, the need for secrecy takes on, well, a different dimension. Consider something like Project MK-ULTRA.
The mind control research.
Yes, those investigations into potential mind control techniques. The belief was, and generally still is, that certain covert operations absolutely require a high degree of secrecy to even have a chance of succeeding.
So if you piece all these reasons together, national security, tech protection, avoiding debate, streamlining intelligence ops.
You start to see a pattern, right? While each justification might have its own specific logic, the overall effect is the intentional concealment of certain government projects and, crucially, how much they cost.
Which brings us to the evidence. What evidence or claims suggest this kind of concealment is actually happening, perhaps on a large scale right now?
Well, one key piece of evidence often cited is simply the existence of very large, vaguely described, classified budget lines in official documents.
Can you give an example?
Sure. The Department of Energy, for instance, has a category called Other Defense Activities. In fiscal year 2021, the request for that line item was reportedly over $1 billion.
$1 billion for other activities. That's opaque.
Exactly. It's notable how these broad categories can effectively mask a huge range of activities. This fundamental lack of transparency at such a significant financial level naturally fuels questions about what, specifically, that money is funding.
And then there's the history of places like Area 51.
Area 51. Yes, its long history of intense secrecy has certainly contributed to these claims. For decades, it's been linked in the public mind to clandestine operations.
And all sorts of conspiracy theories, of course. Aliens, crashed UFOs.
Right. Well, the reality is likely more connected to testing advanced but terrestrial aircraft like the U-2 spy plane or stealth prototypes.
The secrecy itself feeds the speculation.
Absolutely. That intense veil of secrecy undoubtedly fueled public imagination and speculation about deeply concealed government activities, possibly involving exotic technology.
And we also have examples of past declassified secret programs, don't we?
We do. And that's important because it provides historical proof of the government's capability and willingness to run major projects in secret.
Like MKLTRA, which you mentioned.
Yes, and Operation Paperclip.
Bringing German scientists over after the war.
Secretly, yes. And Operation Mockingbird, the alleged CIA program to influence the media. These aren't theories. They're documented historical examples of significant government secrecy.
So the government has done this kind of thing before.
Demonstrably so. Which lends credibility to the idea that similar secret projects might exist today.
What about more recent developments? Technology, maybe?
That's another area. And advancements in military tech that seem to appear almost out of nowhere sometimes also contribute.
Like drones.
Micro-drones, specifically. There are mentions, for example, of something called Project Anubis. Budget documents apparently suggest it's now complete. Potentially involves armed micro-drones, all developed under wraps.
Advanced tech appearing without much public lead-up.
Exactly. It hints at concealed technological progress, likely funded through these black budgets.
And you also have those Navy encounters with UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Right. The reports from Navy personnel describing objects displaying seemingly exotic capabilities that really intensify speculation. People ask, could that be related to secret black budget technology?
It certainly adds fuel to the fire.
It does. Now, it's really important here to maintain that critical perspective we talked about.
Absolutely. Need to look at the other side.
Yes. While all these examples and claims are worth noting, there are counterarguments and important nuances.
Such as?
Well, some argue that while details might be hidden, the basic overarching financial commitments to major programs like nuclear weapons, for example, are actually largely transparent. They're in the budget somewhere, even if bundled.
So the argument is less about completely hidden programs and more about cost overruns or specific line items being obscured.
That's part of the counterargument, yes. The debate, from this viewpoint, might be more centered on the precise allocation of funds within known programs, or maybe budget overruns getting hidden, rather than entire multi-billion-dollar initiatives existing completely off the books. Especially when discussing things like the nuclear arsenal, where spending is immense but broadly acknowledged.
That's a really crucial distinction to draw. The level of secrecy might vary. It might be about the fine print, the specific tech, the true cost, rather than the program existing at all.
Precisely. It's not necessarily all or nothing secrecy.
And haven't there been efforts to increase oversight?
There have. Measures have been put in place over the years aiming to enhance congressional oversight of these shadowy areas.
Like that intelligence budget report.
Exactly. The annual unclassified report on the aggregate figure for intelligence community spending, mandated back in 1993, is one example. It's an effort to provide some degree of transparency.
But it's probably not the full picture.
No, it's acknowledged that considerable discretion, significant wiggle room, remains regarding what specific information gets disclosed within or around that top-line number.
And just practically speaking, how easy is it to keep massive projects completely secret forever in today's world?
That's another valid point. In our hyper-connected, technologically advanced era, Maintaining absolute long-term secrecy is incredibly difficult.
Information leaks. Satellites exist. The internet exists.
Right. Experts like Alex Wellerstein, talking about nuclear weapons development, have pointed this out. Secrecy might effectively limit public knowledge or debate within your own country.
But does it stop other countries or groups figuring things out eventually?
Probably not indefinitely. It might slow them down, but it doesn't necessarily prevent other nations or determined non-state actors from eventually pursuing similar technological paths, especially if the underlying science is known.
So deep secrecy has practical limits in the long run. It might delay awareness, but maybe not prevent eventual discovery or replication elsewhere.
That seems plausible. Its main impact might be more on domestic accountability and public understanding than on permanently denying capabilities to adversaries.
Okay. And one last thing we should touch on is the connection to broader conspiracy theories.
Yes, it's unavoidable. The topic of black budgets definitely intersects with theories about UFOs, hidden alien technology, secret energy sources, all sorts of things.
But that's not been our focus here.
No. While those links are often made in popular culture, our focus today has really been on objectively evaluating the evidence and the reasoning related to the intentional concealment of government projects and their funding.
Sticking to the budgets, the secrecy justifications, the historical precedents.
Exactly. Rather than engaging with those wider, often less substantiated claims. While the existence of black budgets and documented secret projects is factual.
Connecting them to, say, aliens requires a whole different level of proof.
A very different standard of evidence, yes. Our goal was to examine the factual basis for claims of government concealment within this specific financial and operational domain.
Well, thank you for joining this deep dive into the hypothesis of concealed government black budget projects.
It's been an interesting discussion.
We've examined the historical precedents, like the Manhattan Project, looked at the potential motivations for secrecy, national security, technology, avoiding debate.
And we've weighed the available evidence, things like vague budget lines and past declassified programs, against the counter-arguments about oversight and the difficulty of total secrecy.
It's definitely a complex issue, and it raises some really important questions, doesn't it? About government transparency, about national security.
And that fundamental balance between necessary secrecy, perhaps, and public knowledge or accountability.
Where do you draw the line?
That's the perennial question. What strikes me as we wrap up is just that inherent tension. The tension between the perceived need for secrecy in certain government functions, intelligence, advanced military tech.
And the core principles of transparency and accountability that are supposed to underpin a democratic system.
Exactly. The very fact that these concealed budgets exist, almost regardless of what's in them, can impact public trust. It affects the relationship between the government and the people it governs.
That's a really significant point to underscore. It makes you think about the long-term societal effects, doesn't it? The effects of hidden spending, hidden projects, and this ongoing debate about how much transparency is enough or too much in areas like defense and intelligence.
Indeed. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to ponder. Is the nature of government secrecy itself changing?
How so?
With the increasing sophistication of technology, not just for governments to conduct secret projects, but also for others to surveil and for information to spread globally almost instantly, is complete concealment becoming an ever more difficult, perhaps even an outdated, strategy?
Food for thought. Is deep secrecy becoming less feasible or less effective in the 21st century?
Something to consider.
Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.